I think the market right now is still very uneducated. And I noticed this since I was talking to my family back home and some friends back home, because I've been in Bali now for 7 years. I worked at many co-working spaces, and everyone that I know, they hire already people in the Philippines or in Poland or whatsoever. They never did it through an EOR, just like on a contractor base with some shady contract. But they know the talent is there. But if I would tell, let's say, one of my uncles, like, oh, I have a team of 20 people, but they're all globally, he was like, how and why? So I think for us now, maybe we're in this space, so we know it's very common. But I think there's many companies that are very old school and just say, oh, we just hire in a 30-kilometer radius and that's it. That's how we know it and that's how we do it. But they're missing out on a lot of talent. So I think we're also trying to educate companies that it's easy right now to actually hire someone in a different country. And there's also many benefits. So I think that's the overlap also with the internship company. We had a slogan like, don't hire local, go global or something. And actually companies loved it.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Freedom of Work podcast. So in this episode, we are going to be talking about all things talent, employing borderless, which is what Robbin will be able to explain. But we're going to sort of be unpacking that global mindset, how we can fuel talent growth, the barriers we're facing when we're hiring internationally, and how to overcome them. So yeah, Robbin, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. Calling in from
Bali, Indonesia. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, so if you want to give a quick intro about yourself, I know we'll be delving into Employ Borderless in the EOR overview as well as we go through this. But yeah, if you want to give a little intro and tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Okay. My name is Robbin. I'm officially from the Netherlands, but I've been based in Bali for around 7 years. I established the platform Employ Borderless in 2024, purely because I've been on a journey of hiring remote and some other stuff, which I will get more into later. And it was so hard to find the right information. So me and my co-founder, we decided to start Employ Borderless, which is basically a unbiased advisory platform for remote hiring. So if you want to hire someone in the Philippines or the US, we are trying to guide you in the right direction with what information you need regarding regulations, pricing, setup fees, etc. That's what we do.
Cool. Sounds really exciting. And it sounds exactly what Remote First is all about. So I'm really excited to get into it. So I guess thanks for that intro. What actually inspired you to start this journey of Employ Borderless and now EOR overview?
It's an interesting journey. So I did my first international internship, I think, how long is that ago? Maybe 10 years ago. I did my internship in Vietnam and I loved it. But one thing that I got annoyed by was that I couldn't get paid. And I didn't understand why. I was a student. I was like, why would I work for no salary?
Yeah.
The next year, I did my graduation internship in Bali, Indonesia. So a company reached out to me and said like, hey, we have this vacancy. Are you interested in going to Bali? And I was like, yeah, why not? Like, I had no idea what Bali was. I thought it was like the Maldives. Unfortunately, it wasn't like that, but it's still an amazing place. I did my internship, and after that, I kind of fell in love with Bali. And I was like, okay, I need to figure out how to work online, and started freelancing, and that's it. During my internship, found another intern that also had the same problem. He was like, it's very hard to actually get your internship. For us, it was easy, but for other students, it's very hard to find an internship. And like, how does it work? Like, how do I go to Indonesia? Do I need a visa? So what we did, we first started a website called Internship Abroad. And basically, we're just writing content about how to find an internship, how to prepare for a job interview. Like, if you want to go to Indonesia, what visa do you need? If you want to go to Spain, what do you need to be taken care of? And that grew quite big. So we actually grew it into a internship mediation platform. So we would do onboarding calls with students. And then we had all partner companies over the world with a global internship planning. So students will come to us from any country and they want to go to a specific country. We'll try to figure out how it works. We find a company there and we place them. Doing this, we run into many issues. So in many countries, if you want to hire an intern and you want to put them under the payroll, it's very complex. So many companies are like, we're not going to pay salary. So if you're a student and watching this, it's not the company doesn't want to pay you. Maybe there's some companies, but it's very difficult to actually, for 6 months, employ someone, take care of all their benefits, and then after 6 months say goodbye. So that was the journey with internship abroad. And I recently stepped down of the company because I'm now more focusing on the global hiring space. So this was the little bridge from me trying to help students and being a student myself towards now being into the global hiring space and have the platform Employ Borderless, which is more like content educational website where you can read about global hiring. We also do consultations, so you can just fill in a form. We check what's the best provider if you're looking into an EOR or other solutions. We give you the recommendation, or we have EOR overview, which is more directory where you have your own tools you can compare and just figure it out yourself. And soon, since we're now in this space, we're also launching payroll overview, which is a nice bridge to the rest of the companies that we have.
Yeah, definitely. I like the bridge, and I feel like it's really nice the way it come from your own pain points. You were trying to find the solution and you thought, well, I guess I'll just make the solution. So I absolutely love that, and how it's sort of tiered on now to this more global hiring, employ borderless, and then EOR view, and then payroll overview. And I really like that because as people are wanting to hire much more globally and see like a seamless way to be able to do that, I think these are great ways for people to be able to explore it and see what their budget is, what their needs are. And some people don't know that their pain points will mean finding an EOR provider is going to actually benefit them. So yeah, I think it's a really good way for people to look into that.
I think the market right now is still very uneducated. And I noticed this since I was talking to my family back home and some friends back home, because I've been in Bali now for 7 years. I worked at many co-working spaces, and everyone that I know, they hire already people in the Philippines or in Poland or whatsoever. They never did it through an EOR, just like on a contractor base with some shady contract. But they know the talent is there. But if I would tell, let's say, one of my uncles, like, oh, I have a team of 20 people, but they're all globally, he was like, how and why? So I think for us now, maybe we're in this space, so we know it's very common. But I think there's many companies that are very old school and just say, oh, we just hire in a 30-kilometer radius and that's it. That's how we know it and that's how we do it. But they're missing out on a lot of talent. So I think we're also trying to educate companies that it's easy right now to actually hire someone in a different country. And there's also many benefits. So I think that's the overlap also with the internship company. We had a slogan like, I forgot, something like, don't hire local, go global or something. And actually companies loved it. They were like, oh, because when I did my internship in Bali, I came to a local company and I had a lot of Western knowledge, and it was a co-working space. So they needed my input as well and feedback, because they were doing things that I saw, many things that could have been improved from a Western perspective, and they would never understand that. So even just bringing in a student for 6 months is very beneficial for a company.
Yeah, and even like what you said there, bringing in a completely different perspective is the whole idea of why global hiring is so important. Because in a 30-kilometer radius, as you said, the knowledge and the personalities and sort of that culture is going to be quite similar in that sort of space. And the second you go past those borders and explore what, if you're hiring like in the Philippines, Mexico City, India, like Canada, all those perspectives are going to be completely different about one singular idea. It's only going to benefit the company itself because you're going to be able to work with different people, different cultures, like in a completely different environment that you're probably used to as just sort of the same people thinking the same thing. And it's kind of going to stint innovation.
Yeah, we're heading towards a nice new trend. Just people are still very uneducated. So
Yeah.
I think it's great that you guys are doing this podcast, and it's great content so far. So
yeah, we're going to try and educate everybody. That's the hope. All right, cool. So that's really give us a good idea of yourself and where you got to and where you came from. So I really like that. So then, how then has your global experience in this sort of way of work sort of changed your view of work, I guess, or shaped it? I know we sort of briefly just spoke about that then, but yeah, how is this?
Yeah, so just from my other perspective, right? I started as a freelancer. So my background is marketing and SEO. So I did consultation first. I had a client in the Netherlands, which is quite easy with time zones. Like I could work the full beginning of the day. He would come online in the afternoon. We have a quick chat and that's it, right? I could just deliver my work during morning, have a chat and then be done, which is easy. But then I started consulting in the United States, in Miami. So it was like, I think, a 12-hour gap. So all my meetings were at 2 a.m., which for me was fine. I used to work a lot. But I think what I realized that not everyone is like me. So not everyone is willing to adapt to specific hours, which is fine, right? Like I don't recommend you doing meetings at 2 a.m. But I think it gave me some insight that global work is easily doable if you have the right motivated people, and also if the company is willing to make some sacrifices as well. It was just not me committing just to 2 a.m. meetings. They were also very flexible with other stuff. And I could just be in Bali, get a nice Western salary, and it was a great company to work with. And I always felt like all different time zones, it's going to be a headache with work. But if I now look in my own company, we have a bunch of employees in different parts of the world, and it's maybe we do a sync once a week. Like everyone knows their tasks. We're very open. Also, we give everyone a lot of room to just come up with ideas and stuff. And just this one meeting, we just figure out the best time for everyone, and everyone's super happy. So I think that some companies are still scared, like, oh, how are we going to manage time zones? But there's so many benefits. Like, let's say I work Bali hours. My partner is in the Netherlands. Like, we cover almost a whole day with our working hours. So if someone books a meeting from Europe, he's taking it. If they're booking it from Asia, I will take it. So it's not a downside of time zone. I see it more as a benefit. And there's a bunch more benefits. So I think that kind of gave me eye-opening, like, you just need to be creative with how you set up meetings and how you actually work with your employees, and then it's very easily managed.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Especially like in my marketing team, we've got people based in the US, me in here in England at the moment, and then we've got the Madrid side. So as if you're speaking to different clients, you can be like, oh, to the US side, oh, is it okay, you take this one, or a European side, or I speak to the product team, they're more based like Kazakhstan ways for content for me and the product team. And it's kind of like they wanted to hire someone in content in this time zone because it was easier to speak to some of the people who do the engineer and product side as well. And I think that's exactly where like asynchronous work plays into it, because people probably are relying on meetings and things a lot more in a hybrid full office space because that's the way of work that they were always taught. But this async work and making sure you're constantly documentation, like if I go offline, it needs to be able to, if someone wants to go online, they can directly see what I've been working on and how they can help solve the problem if I'm not going to be back online for another 8 hours. But also I do think in like a global remote team that the urgency and like the projected time to complete a task is probably a lot more preempted, that maybe there will be a few hours where you can't get in touch with someone. So I think that's like analysed as well. Like maybe in a full-time office or a hybrid workplace, they might say, oh, we need this completed in 2 weeks' time. But I think as a remote team, they'll kind of look, well, let's give ourselves a month in case they're off. They've got Mexican holidays, they're off in England this day, and all the holidays are different, time zones are different, and it's just like preempting what that's going to look like and making sure that things like Jira and Trello boards and everything and Slack messages and open communication is all at the heart of being able to work globally.
100%. And get yourself an amazing operational manager, because we have an amazing operational manager. And I don't know, whenever someone is on holiday, we also have a policy within our company that I can ping you on Slack anytime, but I don't expect an answer. Like if you're out on holiday, or like they put it on Slack as well, right? I just put it out there because sometimes I forget things. And then we also have the policy, you don't need to respond right now. Just whenever you're back in business hours, respond. And I think that's working fine for everyone. And it's been great. Like I love working remote. My team loves it. And if the employees are happy, I'm happy. And it's better for the company performance, I guess.
Yeah, and also I think the fact that people want to work remotely, they want to work for this company, they want to prove that they can work remotely as well. So if there is, as you say, a meeting at 11 p.m. and it's a really important meeting, people are going to join that because they want to be in the job that they're in. So if people aren't attending and people aren't online and present when you're maybe asking them for things and it's quite urgent, I know it's hard to define what urgent sometimes means in different places, but yeah, I think people will show up and they will contribute and they will give an effort if they want to be there as well. So yeah, so I guess that sort of mindset has helped you shape that way of work. And this global mindset, I think, is exactly where we hope, especially me and you, that that's what people are going to be going into the future thinking of. So I guess we've kind of touched on it, but specifically, what do you think companies are missing out on when they are hiring locally?
I think we just touched base on most of the points, right? So I would say I think there's a few. So one, if you're only competing with local employees, let's go back to the 30-kilometer radius, right? There's a bunch of companies with a specific radius. There's a bunch of people within a specific radius. If every company starts competing for the same people, one, talent will be gone quite fast because it's just who gives the best offer, which makes employees actually more expensive.
Yeah.
And there's actually so much talent abroad, which is point two. And this is what I had to learn when I started my own agency. I was outgrowing myself, and then I met this guy and he was like, oh, just start hiring an assistant. And I was like, what's an assistant going to do for me? And then he introduced me to the Philippines. And this is also going to be my point three. And I'm not saying this because I support cheap labor, but I will elaborate more on that. But he recommended the Philippines, and I had a chat with a few people, but their English was amazing, like better than mine, like super good, super organized, super structured. And that's what I'm missing, right? So I'm very good in working, but managing people and structuring my work is not my best. So I found this amazing girl in the Philippines, and then she was my assistant, and she started doing marketing with me and some other stuff. But she was the most amazing person, and I would have never even thought of hiring in the Philippines if it wasn't for my friend. And he showed me the whole process. It was this platform where you can find talent, etc. It's still hard, and I think we can touch base on that later. But like the whole process of going manually through resumes and finding a candidate, doing the interviews, it's very time consuming. So I think now we're entering the whole AI era, and I think other companies are already doing this where you just screen all the profiles and you get your ideal candidate, which is great. When I did this 5 years ago, that didn't exist. So I had to do all the interviews myself and figure out which was the best for what I needed. So that's point two. Point three is the price. And I'm not saying this because hire someone in Philippines for $400. No, I'm not saying that. We have employees globally. So we have them in Indonesia, we have them in the Philippines, we have them in Eastern Europe, we have them in the States, we have them wherever. And we just have a policy that we pay above standard rates anyway. We want the employees to be happy, and we always ask them, what do you need to earn to be comfortable? And we always go above that just to make sure that the employee is happy, and they will also give it back to us. Like if we need something extra, they will do it. And we just touch base on that as well, right? So if they can work, we have one girl in the company, she loves to travel. So she's traveling the whole world, and because of the remote position, she can do that. And she recommended another person that also now worked for us. So I think those are the three main things. It's not, let's say you hire a developer in San Francisco, you pay $200,000 a year, where in Poland, you can pay the same talent, let's say 70,000, whereas his normal salary would be 50,000. So you pay him like 20K extra, but he is willing to work way harder than someone in San Francisco for 200K. I'm not saying the developer in San Francisco is not good. It's just the prices are different globally, and you can still support someone very well by just paying way above their standard fees, and you make their life amazing. So I think those are 3 items that I think fit this topic very well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's exactly what you said there. The if you're not hiring globally, then you are on searching for talent that everybody in that area is going to be searching for. So it just becomes like you're chasing and you're not getting the best out of that. But yeah, I completely agree with that. I think especially with the Philippines, their like skills, culture, and like the practicality of it. They've got strong. I think they're like one of the largest English speaking countries in the world, which is amazing. And I know they're always singing, aren't they? So I feel like they know all the English lyrics, everything. That's like what they're known for. But
maybe that's the reason.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. It's the culture fit for like a Western team. They're willing to go above and beyond, and I think these type of things, characteristics, and obviously I know they have like a strong work ethic, only makes it more employable for yourself to be able to do that. So yeah, I really like that, and it makes people think that if you can do that, why aren't I doing that? I guess is the question. Why am I spending this amount of money? Why am I trying to chase talent in this small area? Why am I impacting my business when I don't actually need to be? It's some questions that people need to be asking themselves.
It is, but there's also many companies that like this comfort zone, right? Let's say I live in Amsterdam, I have my office there, and I just like everyone to be in the office. I think it's also management style. Like, I don't mind if someone is 10 hours behind or ahead of me. Like, if they get the work done, it's fine. But there's also companies that just like this old school system, like everyone at the office. And I think those companies struggled a lot during COVID because they're used to those things. And I think the companies that were already like hybrid or fully remote, they accelerated during COVID. Like, everyone was like, okay, this is great. Like, I don't have to think about going to the office anymore. I can take care of my dog. It's like the simple things. But I think that has been a big shift, and probably you guys have seen that as well, that remote hiring is like peaking. And I think at some point it was like decrease again because everyone was like, oh, this remote, people are not motivated, or they're just in the pajamas during meetings or whatsoever. But I think now it's picking up again because now the employees are like, oh, we had like a taste of this remote work. Like, we're going to find a company that is offering this. And I think that's also a thing why as a company you should start hiring remote, because if you don't, you'll lose a lot of talent that actually wants to work remote. So
yeah. And I think that's some of the common barriers and what people and companies are trying to overcome at the moment. I think, as we spoke about, things like time zone and cost, but then it's also like the legal element, the compliance side of things. And I guess that's why we are the solution, the AOR solution, hopefully. But I guess when you are when you are having a look at all of these EORs, having a look at through Employ Borderless, etc., what are some of the most the misconceptions or fears that you've seen that people are really shouting about when they're hiring internationally? What are those barriers that are perhaps just stopping people going that one step further?
I think there's a few things. I think one, let's say you're a company, you want to do your first hire abroad, or you have someone working for you for 10 years, but they want to move to another country. I think these are the moments that people start looking for solutions. And I think then they're just ending up in this red hole of like, how do I set up an entity, or what is compliance, or what are employee benefits? And they see like, oh, you set up an entity in Germany for 50,000 euro, or whatever. There's so much information. And I think that people don't realize that EORs exist. And I think it's becoming better now. But I think we were like 2 years ago when I started this, I didn't even know what an EOR was. We were looking to properly hire people instead of just do some contract. And then we added up with EORs and we're like, oh, this is actually a very interesting market. And since I had the background in the internship business, I was like, oh, this is nice as a follow-up of that. And then I think cost is the biggest one. So they think it's going to cost them a lot of money. And then also, like, of course, there's cheaper EORs now, like starting at $200. So it's more available for smaller businesses as well. But like when the bigger players started with EOR, it's like $600-700 per employee per month. Let's say you hire someone in the Philippines for 600, you pay already 2 times more than you would normally. So then that's also, like, I think, a deal breaker for them. And I think it's just the missing of the information. Like, how do I actually do this? And we're trying to do this with Employ Borderless, just to try to give different options. And still we are struggling as well, because there are so many different options. And some companies, they now want to hire one person, but maybe they want to expand to 10. And then the question is, does it make sense to set up an entity now or start with the EOR and then do the entity later? So we get many different questions, but it's usually also very detailed on, like, oh, can I actually use an EOR in Spain because I read this online? Because there's so many articles in Google, like, giving different pieces of information. Because I think in Spain, if you want to do it, there's another route, but still an EOR can help you out. So I think it's just the missing of information, and also the people are not educated enough because it's still a new thing. Like, I've been hiring internationally since 5 years, but still it's all a very new market, I feel like.
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah. It's like the information's there, but people are trying to ask the right questions. And because maybe people aren't educated enough at the moment, they don't know if they're asking the right questions to get to the right point. So they know that they need to be compliant there, and they know they need to have a contract there. They know they need to have the right benefits there. But it's like, how am I getting there? So yeah, I think it's definitely, and hopefully that's what we're aiming to do, and yourself, but like educating these people that it is a little bit easier than you think, even though it seems like the biggest task in the world, hiring somebody across the globe. Like, don't worry, we've got you sorted.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it's easy now, and people should understand that. Like, it's very easy now, and I think it's also scary, and also for an employee, because we had these questions a few times, because we don't only get companies that come to us, but it's often that an employee wants to relocate, and they're like, hey,
oh,
my company is open to actually help me with this, but then I read about EOR, and then what's the solution? But then they also read that still the company will contract them, but the contract will also be on their name. Let's say they do it with you guys, remote first, and then also salaries are not paid from the employer, but from another local account, or if the EOR has their own entities, from that entity. So then they're also like, oh, but how does it work with my pension? And how does it work with this? Because I'm not contracted by this company. So I think that's also the scary part. And that's also what we are now trying to also understand better, like this whole setup, and how does it work with a pension for an employee, and how does it work with this. But I think those are also scary parts for an employee that has been working for 10 years for the same company. They have their pension, they have this all taken care of. They go abroad, they make a big move. The employer is still willing to assist with that, but then, oh, but I have to do something completely new. So I think that's also a thing that we are now looking into, and how can we not only help companies hire abroad, but also how can we help employees relocate?
yeah, definitely. And that is a really scary thing, isn't it, for an individual? Firstly, to get up and move, because that's a massive truth in somebody's life to be able to do that. But like the pension and salary side, and like having a job, are like some of like the riskiest, scariest things that you can be involved in. And if they're not, that's going to be a really big question for somebody. If they have, yeah, as you said, been at a company like 20, 30 years, the pension and commitment to that company is going to be massive. So what does that look like? And yeah, ask them asking those right questions, but you being able to help and give the right answers is only going to help them and company. Yeah. So then when you are doing these consultations, speaking with these people, is there any certain like advice that you give for companies that maybe are wanting to start hiring globally, but maybe not sure where to begin?
I think what we're trying to say, let's say a company is open to hiring abroad and they're just a little bit scared, we just suggest them to just start with one employee. Like, the
Yeah.
risk of just starting with one employee is very low, right? Like you can just figure out the process, like how does onboarding work. We also we have partnerships with EOR providers purely to offer our customers discount. But also we get more insights from the EOR. So what we're trying to do, if someone comes to us with a personal question or recommendation, we take the information that we have on the providers and we give the company a recommendation. We always suggest them to just do 2 or 3 demo calls with different providers, purely because you need to get a feeling with the company. Let's say with one employee, it's fine. Like it doesn't matter if you take the more expensive one, the cheaper one. Just start, feel the process, and then if you like it, you can expand to that. But if you don't like the provider, you can still switch. If you have 50 employees with one provider, it's more difficult, right? And then basically what we tell them, like just ask a few questions, like, do they cover the country that you want to hire? Like if an ER doesn't cover the country you want to hire, you don't have to book a demo call. Do they fit your budget? And is there any integration that you currently have, like Workday or something else that you need to be having integrated? And usually there's a few questions from the employee, like, oh, are they taking care of my pension? Are they taking care of this? So check this if you do a demo call with your provider. And then just get started. Like, don't overcomplicate things. It's not that you need to set up a whole entity. You don't need lawyers. You don't need anything. Just do the onboarding. If you like the company, just start, do your first hire. You also figure out if you like hiring an international employee. There's benefits, it has downsides, I guess. In the long term, it always has benefits. But for me, for the first time, working with Indonesian people was very tough. And not because they're bad. It's just there's a big difference in culture. And I had to learn from them and they had to learn from me. And now it's amazing. But I think this is in every culture. So you just need to get started and also get your company educated on working with other cultures. I think it's very beneficial for any company. And don't overcomplicate things. If you read online, it's very complicated. But if you now just sign up with an EOR, you can get started from maybe around $200 a month. Depends on the country. Like Philippines, for example, is cheaper than European country because it's way more complex. And get your employee onboarded in a week. Don't set up the entity, wait a few months, and then the employee doesn't even want to work for you anymore. So just try to keep it simple. If you're scared of the risk, it's just one employee. Like it's nothing. And then if you like it, just expand your team, grow your team, and you'll soon enough figure out that global talent is way better than just focusing on local talent.
Yeah, exactly. I like that. Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? Especially starting off with one hire, like known entity, it's going to be absolute overkill because if you're panicking about doing one in the first place, I think it's going to be
better not do it.
Yeah. So, especially with like an EOR, you got fully compliant, no local entities needed, payroll, taxes, benefits, all handled, and then you can easily add more later. And as you said, swap if needed. And I think, yeah, there's a monthly fee to that, but that's because they are doing all of the hard work and the admin that you're not having to do. And yeah, I guess as you said as well, making sure you're choosing the right country strategically. Are you looking for strong English? Are they ready to work in remote work culture? Are they wanting to overlap with you at certain times? What does that look like for someone working for you? And especially, I've said, like a personal assistant, you want those skills and characteristics to be able to pull through. Like, do you want to just have a 2-hour overlap with that person, a 4-hour overlap with that person? Do you want to just be constantly overlapped with them? Like, you have to look at it from different points of view to be able to make sure that you're getting the basics right and what that's looking for, the written expectations of what your employee and that person has, because they are going to be fully remote. They need to be able to know what their response time needs to be, like how to set their priorities right. Do they have project management tools? How are they communicating? Tools, documentation, the context to everything needs to be like so descriptive so that person can just hit the ground running, because especially in a remote environment, even though the employer of record is doing that side of things, the company itself has to make sure that they're clearly putting everything together so that person can be hired straight away, basically.
It's not that they onboard your employee in the company. Like they hire the person for you, they take care of all your headaches that you don't want to think about, but you still need to manage your employee. Would be great if EORs can do that as well, but I think it's also good for your company to just spend some time knowing your employees and training them. So
yeah, definitely, exactly, and it helps you get to know the person get to know the company. It's only going to benefit you as well. So yeah, that's something to think about, and I like the little bit of advice there. So I know when we first started speaking and you spoke about this internship, early career talent through international roles, I was just thinking if we could rethink like internships, grad roles, junior hiring globally. Sometimes I feel like with global hires that maybe this bit is a little bit left off, or what is the opportunity for those early career opportunities for professionals across borders? Like, what does that look like? Maybe this isn't uncovered enough, and obviously with your previous experience, you can see that that is something that you were really interested in. So how then do you think companies could or early career international hiring benefit both the company and the talent?
I think it's actually a huge market. And actually, when I did my internship company, we were actually already thinking about starting an early career platform. Because with the onboarding the companies, we built our own software where basically we did the matching and stuff. And I did most of the company onboarding calls together with my partner. And the first question what companies would ask is if they can hire the student after they graduate. So companies are looking a lot for freshly graduates with international experience. So if you're a student, do international internships, because companies are very eager to hire you. And what we have learned is that companies are very interested in students and actually keeping them. Because I think what's happening with internships, they would train you for 6 months, like if you're a student. So you already have the knowledge. So it's very easy for them to onboard you after. And we have many companies that said, oh, we don't want an intern if they cannot be hired after. So our whole vision was that you do an internship via internship abroad. We already built your resume because you fill in information when you do a video message of yourself explaining who you are. We wanted to give that personal touch. So we have this profile. We would then send that to the next platform. And then that would be basically a marketplace for freshly graduates looking for international jobs. Because most students that do an internship abroad, they already want to go abroad for work as well. So I think there's still a big market there. I just don't have enough time to do it, unfortunately. But I think that's also very important for the new generation. I think that if companies already have international teams, like they allow you to work remote, I think it's very beneficial for employer branding to have this in your, how do I say this, portfolio? Like students know, oh, they have an international team. They do make me, maybe it's 3 months a year that I can travel. Like those are now requirements for next freshly graduates for taking a job. So I think it's very important that companies that have never hired internationally to now start hiring right now. Just if you don't do it in 5 years, many people will not want to work for your company anymore. That's my prediction. Of course, there's still more old school people and people that still would want to work in their hometown, etc. But I think the trend now is going, people love to travel. Like even like people in high school, like when I did my high school, I did a trip to Bulgaria with my friends. Now I see people backpack for 6 months. After the backpacking, they don't want to study anymore because they're like, oh, this is way better than working or studying. So I think there's going to be a big shift. And I think companies should adapt right now. And starting with your first international hire would be an easy first step.
Yeah, definitely. And it's really interesting what you said there about companies actually, once they bring on someone from the internship, making sure that they can hire them afterwards as well, because you're getting someone straight from a graduate. And those are the people that, as a graduate, if you can get a job straight away, you're absolutely like over the moon, ready to get into it. And if there's an opportunity after that as well, it benefits the company because that person's been able to intern or got a role themselves and learn the company. And that's going to be better than hiring someone that doesn't know the company at all. So, yeah, I think it's a really strong starting point for companies to be able to have a look at that early career professional, see what's happening there, and train them up in a year so that you can hire them at the end of that. And yeah, I think there's definitely opportunities. Yeah. And absolutely, I think it's going to be really interesting to see, because even at the moment, you can see the surge for global hiring starting to increase. I think in 5 years' time, it's going to be really interesting to see perhaps those companies that did end up dropping off the cliff because they didn't globally hire in time, or what companies did and what that looks like for them. So, yeah, hopefully I'm in the mix of all the conversations over the next 5 years, and I'll be able to see the trends, see what's happening there. So yeah, I think that
We did a prediction.
yeah, right now on this date, 21st
Exactly.
Jan. We'll have to do a call in 5 years' time, and then we can see.
Deal.
Um, cool. And I guess as we are speaking about the future of global hiring, we've sort of spoken about the trends, the challenges, the pain points, and those early career moments, how it is beneficial. But I guess the future of global hiring and the trends for the next 5 to 10 years are exactly what we're looking for. And I guess, yeah, is that exactly where do you think global hiring is heading? How is this looking like in the next 5 years? We've said it's going to be increasing, but people, yeah, what do we think this is going to be looking like?
I think it's going to keep increasing, but I think also probably some companies will take a break on it, like more remote setup where you can 3 work days from home to remote, to at the office. And I think for some companies it makes sense if you're very heavy on meetings and it's very important. Like I'm personally not a fan of meetings. Like the least meetings per week, the better. But I think it's gonna grow. Like also, I think that right now, like me living in Indonesia, like over the past years, it was always a headache with what visa I should be getting, and there's many gray areas where also people set up like a company just as a basically you're saying with the company, I have the intention to invest this amount of money in Indonesia, but basically what you're doing is you're buying yourself a visa for 2 years.
Okay.
Indonesia is now trying to solve that because they knew that many people like me in that situation were just trying to find loopholes, and agents here were just selling that. So now what they launched last year is a digital nomad visa. So you pay X amount of money, you can stay for 1 year, you can work remote. You cannot work as a local citizen because they're trying to protect local workers, which is great. And I think Portugal is doing this, and some other countries are all releasing digital nomad visas, which is showing that there's interest from workers to work in another country. So I think this will be starting to grow. And I think also countries are investing in this because they want those people to be in their country and spend their money there. So I think that is supporting it already. And I think people are just now, in a way, after Corona, COVID, they just want to travel. They just want to explore more because they've been locked in their house and like, I don't want that anymore. And they start thinking about their life and they're like, oh, I see these people doing that. And also I think social media has a big influence. There's many people promoting working in Dubai or in Bali, and if you're wherever in the Netherlands and it's a very cold, rainy winter, you're like, why am I here? Why am I not 6 months in, I don't know, Mexico and 6 months in the Netherlands? So I think this is going to be the request from employees. And I think companies need to start adapting towards that. Otherwise, they don't have those employees anymore.
Yeah, exactly. People are able to have like a better quality of life because they are able to stay in these countries that you want to be in. So you're not constantly having to travel for a weekend holiday. It means that you're being able to experience that lifestyle on after work, or go to a local restaurant and experience local food. And it's surely going to only help with better burnout because people aren't feeling like they're constantly at home, not being able to get abroad because they're like not just constantly at their laptop, but also like getting in a bit of a better routine because they can think, right, I'm based here now, so of the weekend I can explore, but of a week I'm really excited to get into work. And in essence, I think it's going to be more productive because people, as I said, like they are feeling honored to be able to do this in their life, being able to work abroad. So you want to be able to show that you're not just taking advantage of it. Like you want to be able to be there and see different sites, and it doesn't sort of cost you your work. In a way, it will probably make you more productive because you're happier to be in a place and you can concentrate on your work for the week, and then after work or of a weekend go and see the site. So it's really interesting. Yeah, you can see the rise of digital nomads everywhere. It's great because people are wanting them to spend their money in their country, and why not? It's only going to help the environment and the restaurants, the economy in that place. So yeah, it's very exciting, and you can definitely see how it's changing even so far in the past couple of years. A few more countries have implemented their digital nomad visa already.
It is. And I think also like touching base on that, like I think the more happy the employee, the better they perform. And I think that will compound over the years. Like if you now have employee X and they really want to work in Mexico and you let them, they feel honored and they're willing to put in that extra mile for you to grow your business and help with whatever you need. And they don't get a burnout. They don't, because they're in a happy environment. They drink a coconut after their work instead of going to the local supermarket to buy groceries. I think anything that can make your employees more happy will compound in better results for the business to a certain extent.
Exactly. And it also gives people the opportunity, if they are wanting to relocate, to have some time to try and live there abroad before committing to that. And beforehand, you couldn't really do that, but you can have a 1 year long digital nomad visa and think, actually, yeah, I want to live here forever. And then maybe look at relocating. It's giving people the freedom to do that without burning yourself at home, and you can have career continuity. So you can constantly work, as you said, be productive, but also you've got life exploration as well. You get in different countries under your belt, you can explore the world. So yeah, I'm personally a big advocate of this. So I'm really I'm really excited to see where that's heading. And I guess as a remote worker yourself and with remote teams, is there any advice or maybe any tools that you really find really beneficial for yourself or your team when you are talking about global hiring?
Global hiring, before we just always found the employees via a platform and we sign a contract with them. Now we do it via EOR, but we used to be quite heavy on ClickUp, and we manage everything with that and communication through Slack. Now I'm building our own knowledge base and ClickUp for just the company. So we have all information in there. So I'm custom building that to our needs, because it's very hard to combine all those tools in one. So I'm just trying to do it myself. The only thing that I used, I forgot the name of the tool, but when I was running my internship company, I had developers in Indonesia and they're super smart. Just they wouldn't work if I wouldn't track their time. So it felt very bad for me to do this, but I used a software where basically you pay per employee and they install it and the software tracks their screen. So if they're actually working, they didn't mind because with previous employers, they had to do the same. But I noticed that if they wouldn't, before they tracked their time, they were way less efficient. So I think they were just not working. And this made sure that they did the work. Like I would never myself look at the screenshots. Like I still want to work on a trust base. It just, they were used to work that way. And if I gave them too much freedom, that wouldn't work for them. So those are things with some, and it's not that I'm saying this is with Indonesia, it can be in the Philippines, can be in the US, can be, I think also maybe the new generation might be needing some more micromanagement than the older generations. But the current stack that we're using is ClickUp and Slack, and it's great. And meetings, we barely do. We have an operational manager that's taking care of all the stuff, and it's great.
Yeah, I know there's a solution called Hubstaff, which I've spoken to.
That's the one I've used. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, I was on a webinar with them they're like fully global team, so they're really good. But yeah, it's like global time tracking, productivity, attendance management, and yeah,
It's great. It's great. And also it just for them, it worked very well for them. They were like, okay, I'm going to work. And they had a certain amount of hours. I told them like, I don't mind when you work. So they would just make sure they make their hours. We have improvements with the internship company, and then everyone was happy. They get their salary, and
yeah,
pretty
interesting, isn't
straightforward.
it? Yeah. Okay, so thank you so much for that. I'm thinking about finishing with like a little rapid fire round just to finalize everything we've spoken to and get that guess under wraps. So what is one country you think is underrated for talent?
I would say, well, there's a bunch, but mine would be Indonesia, Philippines, and Poland. And Indonesia, you really need to get used to the people. Like they come, let's say the people in Bali, they live an island life. So it's completely different than living in Amsterdam, right? So everything is a little bit slower, but then when you get to know them and you know how they work, they're great. And short examples, sure, it's just quick fire. But I had an employee who was my chef in Bali, super motivated guy. And he now is helping us with some marketing stuff. He's basically an assistant of mine. And he never could dream of this. Like he thought the only thing that he could do was cook and just serve people. And now he's the best guy that I know, and he's doing everything for me. And just invest time in people, and they're the best asset that you can have.
Oh, love that. Yeah, and I like the mention, I know it is quick fire, but the mention of Poland, I've also seen this come up a little bit more at the moment.
Amazing developers, amazing. Also designers, and in general, Eastern Europe, like if you need developers or designers, that's the place to be. Like they're so hardworking, they're so creative. In the Philippines, anything English speaking, right? They also have great developers. I think the whole world has talent. I think we're just so used to Europe, United States. Okay, that's easy. But there's so much more out there, and that's why EORs are a great solution.
Yeah, exactly. And then what is the biggest myth about global hiring?
That is complicated and expensive. Like you can get started now for $200 a month. There's not much complication. You can hire someone next week. So I think that's the biggest myth that also blocking many people to start. Like spend this $200 and have a happy employee, have a good employee, and improve your business.
Yeah, exactly. And then I guess I know we've spoken about it, but just what excites you most about the future of work?
I think what excites me most, and that's coming back to my current employee, his name is Kusti, that people from like we're very privileged, and that's what I realized. Also, I noticed this also with people or students that were looking for an internship. It sounds very bad, but if people would have somehow of a weird last name from some third world country, companies would not even consider their profile. And I think this is still a very bad thing nowadays. But I really like it that now with global hiring, some, let's say, random guy in Bali can get a really nice opportunity, and his whole family is like, oh, how is this even possible? But this can be anywhere in the world, right? Like if you put in the work, let's say you live in India and you start a content writing job for an agency in the US, they like you a lot, and you get hired by a big company. Those opportunities were never possible. So I think now we're entering a time, and I think this will take maybe 5 to 10 years, that countries become more equal. So someone in Indonesia can have the same opportunities as from the Netherlands or whatsoever. So I think this is what excites me the most, that anyone can get a job that he would love instead of just following the same pattern. Here in Bali, it's very normal that whenever the son starts making money, the parents retire, and they're constantly in this loop of being dependent on the next generation. But I think now if they start making some more money, they can all work either to a pension or, and I think that that's what I really like to happen, that there's more equality for jobs globally.
Yeah, Definitely. Yeah. And it's amazing even seeing it now, and the progress is only going to get bigger, and it's definitely rewarding for the company to be able to give someone like that a job that maybe in the past would never have dreamed of being able to do that. So yeah, it's really nice. I like that. And I think that's definitely exciting for the companies and for the people that are able to do that. So yeah, thanks. I really like that conversation, Robin. It's really interesting to
Likewise.
go from firsthand how you're seeing those challenges, pain points, what you're sort of speaking to people about. And yeah, that's definitely going to help me in what content I need to put out there, because those pain points are definitely what we need to be analysing and getting out there. So yeah, thank you so much. Enjoy Bali. Thank you so much for joining me on this call today. And
Likewise. It was a pleasure.
Soon. Amazing.
Yes,
Thanks
okay.
everyone for listening to this episode. And yeah, bye.